Well, everybody, if you're watching, put hashtag live or hashtag replay. We're a few minutes late, so just join us. Let's have some engagement. You guys are going to have a blast listening to this conversation because we're going to dive into a whole bunch of cool topics. We're going to talk about scaling your agency. We're going to talk about how to get big clients like McDonald's, and name some of the clients that you've been able to work with just off the top of your head.
In the past, I've worked with agencies that work with McDonald's, Disney, Macy's, Schick. We've done productions for all those types of and campaigns, working campaigns for that.
So you'll learn about how to work with those types of clients, and then we're going to dive into something called rapid fire testing, which is something that I think conceptually you may understand, but the way that Deyder does this is pretty fascinating. So I'm very excited to kind of dive into this, understand your methodology behind rapid fire testing and how that works. And yeah, let's start, Deyder, with giving everybody a very high level overview of who you are. Your not so humble bio. Your kind of bragging rights, like the thing that you don't necessarily want to say, but like sometimes you look in the mirror, you're like, let's dust off a little, dirt on my shoulders. Just I accomplish these things, not so bad.
You can say that. Well, if we backtrack it, I've always been that kind of guy who wants to accomplish what others say, oh, that's impossible, or that's going to be hard. So it started back almost 10 years ago when I was in the music industry. And even people in my family told me, you're not going to be able to make money in music. By the age of 21, I had broken 6 figures, and it was part with a W-2 job, and the other half was me doing all sorts of freelance gigs. Through that, that's how I got into working with creative agencies, and that's where the digital marketing world started flowing around me, working with these agencies that worked with these big clients like that, and I was just absorbing. And that's where I got to literally be a part of productions of Google Creative Academy. I don't know if you've heard of that one. They do it in San Francisco. Amazing.
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
It's incredible. Where basically they train companies like P&G, Nestle, Dove on what is next in the world of digital marketing. Like what we know now, they've been creating that years before you see it. Nice. So, and it was pretty exciting. Like 2015 was one of those pivotal years for me to get a whole grasp on digital marketing at that level. And after working with agencies, servicing them through freelance services, because at that point I did WordPress website, I did graphic design, I did sort of a little bit of everything, but then I started niching towards branding, and that's when everything started coming together with results, with being able to charge more, with being able to be valued by clients more. And is that sort of hitting the spot that you wanted to get with the humble bragging?
Yeah. And just tell everybody what you currently do now, what your core focus is.
So the core focus is lead generation, and it takes lead generation to a whole new level with branding, because what happens nowadays, I'm sure you're aware of the funnels, with ClickFunnels, and especially with private practices and companies that lead to a sales call. You can do the copy, the funnel that works, but we go beyond that, in which we utilize the branding of an enterprise level business to justify higher prices, to justify higher authority, to bring all this to the table. And the slogan is, we give the little guy enterprise power, because of all this experience that I've had personally working in the Hollywood production industry. I'm able to give the little guy the advantage. And right now we've helped coaches, for example, whether it's a coach or a financial advisor that has zero income, get to 6 figures within 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And and I'm talking about production of the course. I'm talking about the whole shebang. It's not just digital marketing, so to say. It's kind of a business consultancy meets digital marketing.
Okay, so everyone who is watching and you want to go to 6 figures in 2 months, you know who to contact. That's pretty impressive. pretty hard to do, actually, to go from 0 to 6 figures that quickly with nothing in place. So let's quickly talk about let's dive a little bit. How did you start working with big brands? Now, was it in your current agency or was it before in your previous life?
It was actually, the relationship started before in the previous life. So if we want to call that an in, it is an in, but I think it works that way regardless, because with the big brands, it's not like you're going to catch them just as easily with a funnel, you know, with a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
Especially if we want to talk to the big guy. You may get a chance with a LinkedIn ad, but it was basically the connections that I had through the Hollywood production industry that connected me to that. Yeah.
So if you were starting out and you wanted to working with bigger brands, would you have a kind of a methodology? What would the process be for you to kind of start that process? Because okay, first, yes, you need to try and find yourself some in, but like, how do you go about that? What would you recommend from that standpoint?
Great question. You know, it's really all about being a resource, a valuable resource, like an advisor from the beginning. And I know that works with everybody, but with brands, it's really essential to establish a relationship that's fully on value from the get-go, because they have a lot more to give you than you have to give them, at least from their initial perspective, because they have the big bucks, they have the big brand name, the big brand power. So it's almost like we could get anyone. That's the mentality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I work with guys, even just individuals, by the way, not just big conglomerates, even individuals that are worth 200 million. They could hire anybody to do the work, right? Mm-hmm. They have the budget, but why they choose you is more about the relationship. It's more about going beyond the service. It's how you do things. It's how trustworthy you are beyond just the work. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, and it makes sense because, like, I mean, you know, I was hosting my agency accelerator mastermind call earlier today, and you know, a lot of the people that we target when you're first starting off as an agency is the smaller guys, and it's, you know, it's very easy to target that smaller guy when you're doing Facebook ads, or, you know, to build out a funnel that brings that smaller business to you. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about a bigger brand, though, like you said, that's not really going to work. Like, there's no CEO or you know, the CEO of McDonald's or the director of marketing of McDonald's is certainly not browsing Facebook, clicking on ads that say, would you like your Facebook ads to improve? Like, that's not going to work. So, you know, it is about building that. Do you have any advice? Like, what have you noticed in terms of building relationships that's powerful, that's important, that especially from a bigger brand standpoint? Let's say I am the director of marketing, you know, for McDonald's, for example. Like, what do you care about? Because like you said, I mean, I have all of the budget in the world. I can hire anybody. I probably put out proposals or like requests, RFPs for, you know, requests for proposals and stuff for various things. So it's like, how do you win? How do you kind of work with a small guy if you're a small agency?
Great question. And it goes hand in hand with how a funnel works, because you got to have what they want as a priority before you even mention who you are. So I'll even give you an example, by the way. One of the most successful relationships that I had in regards to reaching someone big that gave me huge opportunities was reaching out via Facebook message. Believe it or not, it actually worked. It was an executive producer. And I reached out with, hey, I really admire your work, truthfully, not making this up. I really admire your work. I was checking you out here, I was checking out over there, you know, just basically showing that, you know, you've studied the company, you've studied what they do, you understand their mission, and you connect to it. If you can bridge that gap of here's where I'm at and here's where you're at with a connection that is meaningful and says, hey, I really want to help you, even if it's just right now, just me giving value. I'm not talking about sending you a proposal or about, quoting you on anything, then I just want to let you know, like literally, these messages have worked wonders for me. Not just once, but multiple times with big companies. And literally just ended like, I just wanted to mention this, these are the things that I also see right now that could be improved. And even just, you can even give some nuggets of wisdom there.
Yep.
But sometimes you can even sell the sizzle rather than the steak. To just get, it's almost like an email. You make the headline of the email, the subject, of the email, to have them check out the email.
Yep.
That's next step. So it's the same thing. You want that first contact to be for them to respond, not necessarily for them to go crazy on you and hire you, right? Or to go much further in the steps. All you want to get is actually first a reply, and second, a call, some type of phone call contact meeting set up for the future, but a solid one, not like, oh yeah, let's talk about it next week. If you don't get that, then the message is not strong enough. But I do encourage you to try again and again. And you will get it to the point where they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'd love to talk to you. Let's schedule a meeting for next Monday. Does that work for you? Like, that's the response you'll get.
Yeah. So if you think about this, the funnel itself, it's still a funnel. Nothing, at the end of the day, a funnel is all about finding a random stranger that has never heard of you, doesn't know who you are, and turning them into a customer. But along that journey, there's always points, there's milestones, there's things that you want to accomplish and that you want to measure, right? So, okay, a typical funnel to go and acquire, let's say, a client, a small business, a local business. Okay, you have a Facebook ad, then you have a landing page, and some sort of schedule a call. Maybe on the landing page there's a video. You can measure those steps. And what you're saying is, in this case, if you're going after a big brand, okay, forget the Facebook ad. Now you're going maybe LinkedIn. You're sending them some sort of in-mail or some sort of direct message. That message is very crafty and witty, just like an ad in a sense. It's meant to kind of draw their attention, make them want to open it, make them want to read it, just like an ad. Now from there,
it is brief, by the way. It's not a long. It is brief.
Exactly, right? You're not trying to tell them like, by the way, here's everything that's wrong with your website, and like, you want to keep it short and you want to keep it just like an ad, right? And then from there, that's your first milestone, and the call to action of that milestone is a reply, getting them to hit the reply button and sending you a message back. It's like, okay, now you can measure that. How many messages have you sent out? Genuine messages. Now, how many people have actually responded? Then the next step is, okay, now you want to go and get them on the phone or schedule a face-to-face meeting. So it's the same type of process, same mindset, but you want to make sure that you do it for that audience, right? The director of marketing of McDonald's versus the small, local gym owner.
Exactly. It's going to be very different for a business owner than what it's going to be for a marketing manager or a brand strategist. And sometimes the brand strategist will be the one that is in the position in bigger companies. So sometimes you may, was that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sometimes you may not even know who the decision maker is, but they're all important. You got to talk as if you're talking already to the decision maker.
Right. How do you then differentiate that? Because a lot of times when you're targeting bigger brands and bigger, when there is a lot of loopholes to go through and the whole corporate ladder, and you don't know who to talk to, how do you go about deciding who do you talk to? Like, who do you first reach out to? Like, how do you, what do you do?
Absolutely have to research the company, and you can do it through LinkedIn, Google, the website. Researching all that will give you the information to go through most of the data that you need to make that decision. And if not, literally for this, by the way, it's just how it works. Cold call to the place and start building relationships with even whoever it is, the receptionist or like anybody. As long as you can gather data, then that moves you forward.
Yeah, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. Like it does wonders.
It does. You'd be surprised also how many times I've done what's called a bold call, which is more of an uninvited drop at the place, like in person, not just
Like you show up. You show
Oh,
up
I
at
show
the
up. Oh yeah, man. That's the thing, and I do it right. I come with a blazer, the suit and tie, because you'd be surprised many times when they see that they go, "Well, who's this guy? What is he doing here?"
Yeah, why is he here? Just he wants a meeting, clear. But that's impressive. Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
again, people try and overcomplicate, or at the same time, make it complicated to. They have to build this funnel and they have to do this in order to, and then all these automations and these conditional logic, and like if this tag happens, it's like, no, just show up and say hi and say like, hey, like this is how I can help you, and like sometimes it's that easy, right?
It can be, and to be honest, I know the holy grail in digital marketing is that evergreen funnel, right, where you make money. But the holy grail in, if you want bigger clients, big brand names, is literally getting in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the phone call, but especially in person, is important. But if you can make that connection, the physical connection, you're going way above and beyond what everybody else is doing in regards to ads, even.
Yeah, I mean, we lose the human touch a lot these days, right? Like the more we, I'm already thinking about the future of funnelytics and the idea of like artificial intelligence and optimizing things by itself. It's like the less human interaction we can have, the more that machines can optimize and do stuff for us, the more like you have to realize that the person who's going to pull out their credit card and actually pay you is a human, and they need that human interaction. They need, and it really is that simple. Like marketing is all about human to human interaction and psychology and nothing else. Like all the fancy tools and tactics don't do anything if you can't speak to the person, right?
Absolutely. And there's a couple of things I want to mention in regards to that are very important, and I feel will be helpful to the audience. One is that when you are doing the approach, whether it's through a reach out in LinkedIn or in person or a call, it does have to have that structure like an ad, like a top of funnel ad, where you're just going straight to the meat and you're going straight to 3 benefits. Usually I limit it to 3 that you already have in mind for the person or the company, and you state them, and then you say, when's a good time to go ahead and schedule a call with you? And like being assertive that way too. So it's not like, hey, I hope, you have the time, like being like full on, let's do this.
Yeah.
Because the bigger the brand, the bigger they're going to want to see that confidence. And another thing is, with bigger brands, you'd be surprised how the authority and the decision maker is actually easier to communicate with and to close, so to say, than with the smaller brands. Because sometimes you'd think, oh, well, it's a small business owner, that's probably going to be easier to get than a big brand. But here's the thing. When you have what's called like the gatekeeper, let's say you're doing a call or you're doing a reach out on LinkedIn to a marketing manager, and it could be someone else answering too, right? It could be somebody else answering for these leaders. Those are going to be way harder to persuade, so to say, than the actual decision maker leader.
Right.
And to build a relationship with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. They're the gatekeeper. They want to filter out the non-credibility and all of that stuff. Absolutely.
Right. But if you can set them up through this top of funnel type of conversation, for them to be your companion in this, like your wingman or wingwoman, that's when you really get an in.
Yep. That makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I want to talk about the concept of rapid fire testing, and I know we're kind of switching gears here completely, and this isn't necessarily the same concept, but let's talk about rapid fire testing. First and foremost, give everybody a breakdown of when you say rapid fire testing, what do you mean?
So we're talking about rapid fire testing. We're specifically talking about Facebook ads. And it's a technique and a process, basically, where you, instead of going through the whole hassle of building a funnel and then creating the ads to figure out which is going to be the best targeting and the best hook and the best offer, you actually go backwards. You create the ads without creating anything else. no funnels built. You test creative, you test the hook, the offers, and the messaging in a pretty much what the word says, rapid fire scenario where you literally have even like 20 plus ads running at the same time with different types of targeting to see which ones give you the best metrics to start with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It kind of reminds me of how Tim Ferriss kind of named the 4-Hour Work Week, right? He did it through Google Ads, and what he did was to try and come up with the name for his book. He didn't know what it was going to be called. He tested a whole bunch of different variations of like, work from home, like lifestyle, that kind of stuff. And 4-Hour Work Week is what stuck and what people got the highest click-through rate and the highest. And he didn't have anything other than a simple little landing page that's it. Like, and that's how he named the book. So why only Facebook ads?
I mean, honestly, it could work for LinkedIn ads or any other ones. My company just focuses on Facebook.
Okay.
But it would work in any kind of ad scenario.
So let's break it down. Let's break down rapid fire testing. If I wanted, first and foremost, who do I do this for? Is it mostly for somebody who is just trying to figure out what their offer is and like is just launching their business and launching what their offer is? They don't really know where they're at in that kind of, or they kind of have an idea of their offer and they kind of have an idea of their messaging and their targeting, but they don't know. Is that really who you do it for? Do you do it further down the line of, would you do it for something like Funnelytics as well, where you already kind of know, like, okay, this is our market, this is, the pain points, we already know all these things. Where is it in that cycle?
All of the above. And if you want to ask particularly helpful with startups. If you don't have anything at all, then it's even more beneficial. So there's 3 stages, 1, 2, 3. And phase 1 is all about targeting. Phase 2 is about the hook and the message. And phase 3 is all about creative. Okay. By the way, is this going from left to right like that, or am I backwards?
No, right now you're going on my screen. You're going from right to left. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Okay, cool. So yes, if you are somebody that already has a product, that you already have your funnel, you already have that, you could even start at stage 2 and let's say stage 2, you already know you're targeting, right? If you don't know, if you're like, I'm not sure if that's the right targeting, whether it's interest-based, whether it's influencer, demographics, whatever it is, if you're unsure, then you can start at phase 1 where you define your targeting more to get higher click-through rates, to get lower cost per clicks.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Sense. Yep, makes perfect sense. Okay, so let's assume I'm a startup. Okay.
Yep.
Let's go through the scenario. What is the process? How do we actually go and set this up? How much money do I need? What do I need to build? Because obviously if there's an ad, there needs to be some sort of landing page or something, right? They've got to click through to somewhere. What are you measuring? Are you measuring click-through rate? Are you measuring, what's your kind of core value, or not your core value, your core KPI that you're looking at? Let's go through the process. What's step 1?
So step 1 is actually a strategy session. And in the strategy session, you define what's called the personas and the angles that you want to address. So for example, if you have I have a client that's a coach, and 3 personas are married couples, but then within that you have couples that are employees, couples that are business owners, and just couples that are personal development oriented. Okay. So you do have, as you can see, some type of definition, but you're like, let's just see out of these 3, which ones bite the most.
Right.
And then within that, you're going to have different angles. So in the creative session, which is kind of like a strategy powwow session, we just lay it all out. It could be, okay, we're going to talk about time, like as a pain point. We're going to talk about fear. We're talking about all these things that affect their pain, and choose which topic to use for the messaging of the ad.
Okay.
That makes sense? So we may even write down 10, but we narrow it down to 3 in the end because we just want to go with the ones that we really think would be the top 3.
Okay.
So then I'm going to pause here and just answer, by the way, one of your questions real quick within the process. At this point, usually a client knows that they'll have to spend at least $600 in ad spend to $3,000 depending on the product. But usually, like a coach could get away with just spending $600 and finding and going through the whole rapid fire testing and getting the results.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the minimum. And then the key performance indicator would be leads acquired.
Okay, so you do set up some sort of lead gen form.
In this case, to start with, it is a lead ad.
Oh, it's lead ads. Okay, cool.
To start with, which will give you some, in a way, hyper numbers, but it's still a guide.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yep, for phase 1 and phase 2, and then on phase 3, that's when you do a full-on landing page instead of the lead ad.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so keep going.
Yeah, so after that strategy session is done, you have 3 audiences as your top 3 and your 3 angles that you're going to hit in messaging-wise. So after you have that, then we move into phase 1 where we create all the ads. A bunch of ads literally could be, like I said, plus 20. It could be 30 ads. And we divide them targeting-wise through those 3 personas. In this case, as an example.
Do you, when you choose your targeting, so you have three core avatars and 3 core hooks, right? So you have 9 combinations in a sense. Do you then say, okay, well, how do you choose your targeting? Let's say I want to target the first one, which is couples who are working, right? That's what you mentioned as an example.
Yep.
How do you go about defining the targeting?
So in this one, it could be, one is going to be interest, another one's going to be demographics, and another one's going to be people that like Tony Robbins. Like an interest, by the way, could be a lookalike. That's the 3rd one.
Yeah. Okay.
And for example, even if it's not a couple, it could be a financial advisor, by the way. It could be,
sure.
I target IT, I target business owners, and then I like IT specialists, like software developers.
Yeah.
That could have big stock. Business owners, and then I target demographically. So those are examples of different types of targeting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, so yeah, what you said makes perfect sense, by the way. So you have the persona, which could be the employee couple, and then we have the lookalike audience. It could be website visitors. It could be video views. I mean, we could split this up even more. But again, we just narrow it down to 3, and then we test those. And in the first phase, once that first phase, which usually takes at least $200 to prove, you get around 1,000 impressions per ad, and you can already get a sense of where the ad is headed. And those numbers can then show you, okay, this ad is performing way better than this ad, which has this message and this hook, and is this targeting. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then what happens is that's phase 1. Phase 2 and phase 3 take the winner and then optimize it.
Now, where does creative come into play? So you mentioned hook, but obviously you need an image as well, right? So where does that come into play? And are you kind of doing 3 image styles with each hook?
So during phase 1, when you've chosen your targeting, you've chosen the message for it, and you have the creative, is actually just pictures or picture ads, single image ads.
Yep.
That will be the same during phase 2. That way, that way, when you test the messaging and the offer hook, then you have the same picture. You're not changing the creative. So that doesn't tweak your metrics there. Creative plays its biggest part on phase 3 when we're optimizing for what you would call the click-through rate at this point.
I see. Okay. So you keep the creative simple and the same. That way the creative does not affect your variables, basically. So the creative's the same across all of them. Therefore, it is what it is.
Exactly. So it doesn't handicap one of your ads. Because if you change too much stuff at once, all of a sudden you don't know what worked.
Right.
What is it that produced that?
Now, we've got a couple questions here. Actually, this is interesting. So, how much do you charge for how much do you charge for the fire test complete process? So I assume like how much a client to run a fire test in order, like what is that the value? How long do you assign for the complete validation? And do you onboard them as monthly marketing clients prior or post validation?
So these are great questions, by the way. What we currently charge for it is $5,000, and it's just a single service. So it's not in any affiliated with any retainer. It's not attached to that. Then the second question was how long it was. So it usually takes 2 to 4 weeks.
Nice.
And the other question, by the way, if you
do you onboard them as monthly? You sell them afterwards, right? Not prior.
Oh yeah, that is one of the greatest things about rapid fire tests. Nobody else does this, which is why I introduced it in this manner. We have it as what's called a foot in the door offer, and Jason Swank is amazing at talking about foot in the door offers for agencies, because a lot of clients are very hesitant to do the whole multi-month retainer with somebody that never had a relationship with.
Yep.
And so with a rapid fire test, the beauty of it is, first of all, you're able to monetize higher at the front, because most agencies that I've seen out there, they include the rapid fire test as a process within the retainer, and they charge less for it.
Right.
So we're actually bringing that to the front, charging more for it, and saying, hey, we're going to give you proof, number one, that you have an audience that works, that you have an offer that works, that you have creative that works, and you have a market.
Yep.
So for startups, that's very valuable, especially if they're in this phase of, we don't know if this is going to work. We don't know if we should even invest in the funnel, right? So at that point, when you give them the results, right before the rapid fire test ends, it's the perfect time for you to look at the numbers. This is incredible. Look at the click-through rates. Look at all the leads we got here. Let's do a retainer. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's now go for the 3-6 month, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's really skyrocketed onboarding retainers, because at that point, it comes after you build a relationship. It doesn't come again from that, I'm trying to sell you a retainer and we just met 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense, and it's a fantastic strategy. I've got a couple more questions, though, in terms of the process, because I'm trying to wrap my head and understand how you would go about this. So you're doing lead gen ads, but what are you really testing? Are you testing, because like, let's say I'm selling supplements. I'm selling animal supplements, like, you know, for health for animals, right?
Okay.
What am I really testing here? Am I testing whether or not people want to buy this supplement? Am I testing whether or not I'll give you an example of a former client that used to sell cranberry supplements for animals, right? So like if your animals have urinary tract infections, for example, right? So what am I testing here? Am I testing whether or not people want to know like how they can fix the urinary tract infections in a natural way without going to the vet? Am I testing whether they want this supplement? You know, because obviously there's a difference there. Just because you want to find out information here does not mean that you want to buy my supplement over here. So what are you really testing? What are we finding out from these tests?
So there's different purposes, and you could actually test for both of what you just described.
Okay.
If you want to test for monetization, you can test for monetization. If you test for the other one, the first one where you said, is it about more information? Then that would be like testing for lead generation.
Right.
So in that case, you could actually, if you want to test for monetization, you would build it out where it's a waiting list, or even it could be a 50% discount, some attractive offer that you want to see how many bites you get.
I see. So that makes sense. And then you would go and say like, you know, this is the price, and at least then you know that if somebody's opting in or you know, putting in their name and email to join the wait list, or for a 50% discount, they already know the price. You know, from that standpoint, that's perfect.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like with monetization, it's easy, for example, with a lot of coaches when they start with warm audiences, maybe they've been doing it for a few years and they have a sizable warm audience and they can monetize really easily. what happens a lot of times is they get to try to market to a cold audience with the same product, and then all of a sudden they get no purchases.
Right.
And the rapid fire test is also a way for these types of clients to be able to tailor everything, the funnel, the offer, the hook, the messaging, the creative, so that it actually works with a cold audience, regardless of what happens with your previous warm audience. So, and I'm talking specifically here about coaches that are starting out, and maybe they have a few thousand followers, they've had a decent amount of purchases where they're great products, but they want to get to that next level where they want to go bigger. They want to go evergreen, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love this idea. Okay, so let's talk about phase 3 then, I guess, because so now I've set aside $600. Does the $600 to $3,000 take you only through phase 1 and 2?
It takes you through the 3 phases.
Okay, so I go and I set up about 20 various ads targeting various. So I have 3 core audiences, and I have 3 hooks, right? 3 angles. Now for this first audience over here, I've got maybe 3 different interests or 3 different segmentation or targeting, right? Demographic is one, interest is another, job titles is a third, for example, right? And then I've got these 3 hooks. So I've now, for this one audience, I now have whatever the math comes out to be, right? So 3 times 3, 9 for 1, right?
Yep.
So
Get on.
Okay. And I have this one creative, this one image. Okay, now I've tested this. I've gone and I say, how do I say one's winner, one's not? Like, because sometimes you sit there and you're like, well, this could be good, but I don't know, like, you know, so
right.
How do you eliminate?
So the elimination process can go sometimes, as you say, sometimes it will be hard to choose. Sometimes it'll be a unanimous decision where you get 20 leads out of one ad and 0, or maybe just a few with the others. And I mean, you'll see it in the click-through rate a lot. Like a great one will have +7.
Wow.
Like % click-through rate, where a not so great one will have maybe less than 1.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is a cold audience. For example, in the coaching industry, you get a 1% average click-through rate. I'm talking about link click-through rate, not the CTR all.
Yeah.
So, and during rapid fire testing, if you get a 3% click-through rate on the click-through, that's already a great sign.
For sure.
So that's the first thing. If you do get them close, though, then we look at, okay, I don't know if you've seen a granular like this, but I'm going to step deeper into this rabbit hole if it's a close call. So then we have to address, okay, is it the copy, is it the image, or is it what's happening after the click? So we look at it from I'm going to go ahead and do it right this time, a left to right scenario, left being, okay, right, the experience of the ad. I see the image. That's the CTR. We actually, with that one, attach it to the CTR all. A lot of times it could be 8% for a great ad. Then after that, it would be how many people clicked, like the read more ...
Yep.
on the copy.
Yep.
We look at that. Then we look at how many people clicked to go through. And then we look at how many people after that actually followed through in the opt-in, meaning they submitted their email, gave their info, and then after that, we even look at how many people follow through on downloading. If there was something promised as a download, like a PDF lead magnet, then we even look at that number, how many people actually downloaded it and follow through. So there's
so you go through each step and say, like, these 2 ads are too close to call as to which one I eliminate. So let's look at the sequence of events that happen, because sometimes maybe one event may have targeted, your typical freebie seeker or something like that, or somebody who's just curious and it wasn't planning on doing anything, versus the other one may have had a lower click-through rate, but more people ended up actually downloading the information or whatever, and now you kind of judge it and you make some decisions based on that.
Precisely.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so okay, in this scenario, we've tested 3 variations, well, really 9 per audience, right? So now we've got 9 times 3, we've got 27 running. We've eliminated a bunch based on this test, but at this stage, we still have not tested new creative. We're still using the same image across all of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing next? Okay, now we know that we're down to, out of the 27, 13 ads. Okay,
Yep.
let's assume. So what do we do with these 13 ads? What happens in the next phase?
So you're talking about phase 1 to phase 2, right?
Yeah, so wait, phase 2 is what exactly? Remind me again?
So phase 2 is where you test the messaging and the hook.
Yeah.
Meaning that, and the hook being on the headline. And phase 1 is just pure targeting.
But how can you test the targeting? Like, how you have to put something in the ad, right? You have to have
of course. So when we build phase 1, it's going to be the whole thing. You know, you're going to have complete ads with the copy and headlines and creatives, right?
I see.
But where we're mainly looking at is what targeting is performing best. We're not looking too much at the other numbers. We're not leaning towards the other numbers yet.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so you're not looking at this. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so you're using the same copy across. Okay, so you're not eliminating it that way. That makes sense.
Exactly. So then let's say we have persona 1 eliminated, persona 2 is eliminated. Now we have 1 targeting, and it's going to be demographic. That's it. Like, we're not targeting lookalikes. We're not targeting people who like Tony Robbins. We're just doing demographic because that's the one that produced the highest numbers. Now in phase 2, we have that winner, and we're going to change up the headline. We're going to change up the message to see if that produces better results and which one does better.
So this whole thing, and I'm just playing devil's advocate because I'm actually fascinated by how you do this, and it's kind of cool. But sometimes, could this not skew your results, like doing it over time like this? Because let's say, for example, right, you run the first, let's say your campaign starts on July 25th, right? So the first half of your test, the first 5 days are in July, but then August comes around, and now a bunch of people are acting differently because it's a new month. Maybe if you're in the weight loss space, for example, it's when you start to see a dip in your seasonality and whatnot. So technically testing, if you're testing over the course of that 2 weeks, you're not really testing versus the same thing because the traffic is different. Like, the people's mindsets are different.
Very valid point. You know, with a situation like that, because in the supplement space and the seasonal environments that you're speaking of, you can run into that. What would be recommended, and that's why I said, you know how I said it could be 600 or it could be 3,000 on the budget?
You keep it going.
Well, it actually is to make it happen faster too.
I see. Okay.
Right. So, because you could do 600 spending 20 a day, or you could do 3,000 spending 100 a day, right? So, and that will give you the results faster, and you'll be able to capitalize on seasons like that.
Nice. That's a very, very good point. A few people, because again, a lot of our people are digital marketing agencies or freelancers. So somebody just asked, okay, well, this question's kind of loaded, but what is your conversion rate for people that are willing to pay for fire test validation only? So the $5,000 offer, what is your conversion rate for people? I guess now we have to kind of dive into your funnel and how you even get these people and all of that stuff, I assume. So, let's give maybe a high level answer, but let's not dive too much unless you want to.
No, I'll be honest. I think it looks like 75 to 80%.
Really?
Like it's crazy. But a lot of these, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to judge it yet from a Facebook ads perspective. I'm mainly judging it from an overall perspective, which includes networking events, which includes personal outreach, which includes referrals. So maybe that's high, but you can gauge it from there.
No, I mean the concept is really really dope. I like the idea of bringing in somebody and saying like, look, here's where you're at right now. Like your business, you're not at a stage where it actually goes against everybody else. Like, I'm going to sell you Facebook ads in a funnel, and we're sitting here and saying like, don't be stupid. Don't go and waste $15,000 not knowing what your offer is, not knowing whether it's going to work. Instead, invest $5,000 with us, and we're going to test it all for you. We're going to find out what the right hook and right message is through this rapid fire testing. It's a 2-week process. That's pretty dope. That's a really good angle. I love it.
Absolutely. All clients have loved it. And here's the thing. What happens most of the time is the opposite. You have clients that have built stuff and they go, it doesn't work. And then they come to us. I'm sure, you know,
yep.
You back in the day went through something like this where somebody has a business and they think it's going to be the next Coca-Cola.
Oh, man.
But then you start marketing it and it's like nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Because they did the product before they did the marketing, right? So that's where, yep. That's where we go. You know, it's the marketing first. You could even tailor it, literally come up with something. We encourage clients to even come up with stuff that they didn't even think of before. You know, literally, if you look at really successful marketers like even Grant Cardone, he comes up with stuff that he hasn't even pulled off yet. But he just has it as an idea. He pushes it out there. And then if enough people bite, then he'll go ahead and make it happen. And that's kind of our mentality behind it. We just want to make sure that you're super successful, so the marketing will then fuel your funnel. The rapid fire test will then fuel the funnel.
I love it, man. I think that's a fantastic strategy. I have somebody, by the way, guys, unfortunately, on our little platform to see where I see comments, I can't see the people's names. I just see comment from Facebook. So right now somebody said, hey, Mikel, FY, that's what I do. Here's my website. That's cool. But we got somebody here, fire test business model, do an audit of their existing marketing strategy or sales process. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. So maybe rephrase your question.
I think I understand that. If probably what they mean is, do you perform an audit of what they have going on, whether it's their website or their service or their sales, before going for for offering them? Yeah, which absolutely. I would say always do an audit, because in the end, if you're going to work with a business that you see a long-term relationship, you want to make sure that they're in the right place with everything.
Makes sense. Man, this has been really inspiring. This has been really cool. I'm very excited by this and this idea of rapid fire testing. It's something that like relatively it's pretty, like, it's not overly complex, right? It's not something that, you know, most people don't do. Like when you set up ads, you have to test. You don't know what ads are going to work or what hooks or what angles, but this is approaching it from the front end, and it really is taking that idea of, you know, what again Tim Ferriss did with the 4-hour work week. I know you weren't inspired by that, or that wasn't what kind of inspired you to do this, but just the idea of let's figure it out first before we create anything. You know, I'm a big advocate of like selling stuff before you deliver it. Like you should before you create it, at least, right? Like, for example, my agency my agency accelerator program, like I asked people if they wanted it. I sold it first and said that it starts in a few weeks, and then I created the content, you know, helping and going down that process, because otherwise it's like you end up wasting months creating stuff, and it's like you think this is the greatest invention in the world. You think you're going to revolutionize the industry, and then you realize that your entire angle was horrible and nobody wants it.
Absolutely, because you're seeing it from the inside. So it's like it's your baby, but all of a sudden it's a completely different story when it's a cold audience. I've had even clients with webinars, especially, where they go, well, my friends and family love it. This should work with a cold audience. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not how it works. But I do have to.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say too, I do have to give credit, because the way we're doing it and the way we use it in business, as far as selling it as a foot in the door offer, this whole thing is actually something that I created. But the method itself was actually created by genius Kat Howell. You know her?
Nice. Yeah, I know Kat Howell.
Oh yeah, she's amazing at it. I just took it like almost like you know how there's jazz.
Yeah.
Well, I just created jazz fusion with it. You know
Nice.
what I mean? Like that's kind of what I did. And then Jason Swank has the core offerings, and I was like, how come a rapid fire test is not a foot in the door offer?
Yeah. It's a great foot in the door offer.
I can tell you, the first time I tried it, was like, hell yeah, this makes total sense. Let's do it. And it accelerates. If there's one thing I can tell you, it does. It accelerates how fast you can close clients for social media.
Can I ask you, what kind of clients does this work with the best? Because like I'm sitting here thinking about like a dentist, for example, and does that really work? Somebody's selling online courses for sure, right? Like you want to get your hook, you want to get your message, etc. But a dentist, a local gym, I mean, technically, yeah, like what is the reason? What is the hook? What is the angle that you're to get somebody to come to your gym or to get somebody to come to your dental office? I think that from that standpoint, actually, it definitely is something interesting. So, but what kind of clients does it work best in your opinion?
In regards to this, to be honest, it works great with lead gen clients like that. Because with the dentist, you could go after people who want a specific service versus another.
Yeah.
And here's, by the way, also what you get. You don't just get metrics in regards to the soft type, like click-through rates and stuff like that. What you get is if you're a dentist and you're going to decide whether you want to create an offer that's for whiter teeth or for periodontal or for whatever it is, another service, cleaning, or it could be something heavy or it could be something foot in the door. It'll also help you estimate how much it would cost you to advertise for that in the social media, how much it would cost you per acquisition or per lead acquisition. So it could be purchase or lead. And then you could say, oh, cool, I get whitening leads way cheaper than periodontal.
Yeah, makes sense. And it also, one thing people forget too, and they assume every kind of dentist is created equal, but a lot of times location matters too. Like if you're targeting a dentist in an affluent neighborhood versus a big city versus a Midwest city, the people around that dentist may want different things, right? And it's hard to say, like you can't just go, it's all teeth whitening and everybody wants teeth whitening. Right. When that may not be the case, right? So I love that. I love that you can kind of test it. Does it work for lawyers, financial planning, or event service providers?
Absolutely. I mean, those are probably one of the best ones. It works for e-commerce too. It works for coaches, obviously, as I mentioned. I mean, I'll be honest, at this point, I'm trying to find out what it doesn't work with.
Nice. Oh, that's a good problem to have. So yeah. Let's wrap it up because I'm conscious of your time and we've gone. It's already 5 o'clock now. But if there's any other questions, guys, make sure you comment below before we wrap up. But is there anything like where are you headed with your agency? I'm curious. Where are you kind of now taking this? This is an incredible front end entry offer, and obviously it allows you to kind of scale but what's next for you?
So what's next is using the rapid fire test as a foot in the door more aggressively with funnels to go ahead and grow the agency, scale it up, as you're saying, actually. And we want to go harder at lead generation because we've done a lot of coaches. We do work with financial advisors as well, but we want to go at lead generation for other private practices like the one you mentioned right now, like dentists and such, because we feel like in terms of the goals of the business, speed is kind of king.
Yeah.
And like, as you've seen, the rapid fire test, it helps you close faster. That's speed. The rapid fire test, it allows you to decide and create profitable scenarios faster. That's speed. So all these components that are speed as a focus combined we want to use that to grow the business. Like, to be honest, I want to make Jordan Zimmerman jealous if we're talking about long-term goals.
That's cool.
I love Jordan Zimmerman, by the way. Nothing against or anything like that, by the way, and I admire him. But I'm kind of a big dreamer and a big thinker, and that's where we're headed.
I respect that. My entire goal is for Google to kind of be like, wait, who's Funalytics? That's so I understand those big vision goals. I want the people at Google Analytics to be like, yo, who's this little small company taking up our market share? I don't get it.
Nice.